Good evening and welcome once again to another edition of Community Spotlight, the show where we try to highlight specific individuals and organizations in our Kenton community. One of the individuals that we're going to be recognizing tonight and talking to tonight is Charles Jacobs. He's the curator of the Sullivan Johnson Museum and a whole lot of other titles that we can't even begin to talk about right now. Welcome, Charles.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
There's a number of questions, I guess, that runs initially through my mind when I hear curator of a museum. Exactly what is a curator and what does a person do that is deemed a curator?
Well, that title itself, curator, goes quite a bit back into history. In fact, it probably has its roots all the way back into ancient Egypt, but I won't go into a long history lesson with you, but leave it to say that the English like to refer to curators simply as keepers. Not so much we think of keepers as a zookeepers, but they liken it to a keeper of collections. But it's since that kind of ancient use, it's come to mean a lot more than that. And curators, of course, are responsible for keeping the collections, but also curators are connoisseurs, if you will. They research, they study, specifically material culture, what we call, that's a fancy name for it, artifacts, objects. Curators are very interested in that, not only researching it, but making them relevant to the public, interpreting them, if you will.
Okay. One of the things that we're here tonight in the Sullivan Johnson Museum, taping the show for the folks here. We're sitting on the stairway going upstairs, so the lovely backdrop is courtesy of Mary Lou Johnson and all of her architects and interior decorators and everyone else that was involved. When we look through here a little bit later on in the program, we're going to have an opportunity to show some of the folks, some of the artifacts that we've got here. Do you go out and find the artifacts? Do people bring them into you? How do they get from, say, my house to your museum, or our museum, as the case may be?
It actually works in several ways. I must say, begin by saying that I would say a good 99% of the collections were donations. That our collections go all the way back to the Pioneer Association, at least, the Hardin County Pioneer Association, which more or less began in the 19th century, mid-19th century, and finally dissolved, kind of petered out by the middle of this century. But the DAR, the Fort MacArthur chapter, collected, safeguarded a large collection for years, and some of the viewers may remember the relic room down at the courthouse, but Hardin County Historical Museum more or less fell heir to that collection. There's also the Hardin County Historical Society collection that came to being, but back to your original question there, a number of people have come forward and made some very generous donations over the years, and we're really grateful to them. We have, from time to time, gone out kind of on a scavenger hunt, if you will, a treasure hunt, and I've gone to different like antique shows and things and acquired. But of course, our means, for the most part, over the years, has been very limited, and budget for that kind of thing has been very limited.
When we look at the Gene Autry collection, has most of that been donated, or have you had to go out and actually purchase, or the museum board had to go out and purchase that?
We have had a lot of donations for the Kenton toys. We have had a number of items on loan for a specific duration, so we do like to highlight different aspects of the Kenton hardware collection over the year, the company's history, whether it be cap pistols one year, perhaps another year we'll concentrate on the so-called still banks. Those are the non-mechanical banks. We have in the past had a small, when I say small, reserve fund, about $1,000, and we've had a lot of people donating into that to spend on Kenton toys, but as some of the viewers well know, $1,000 doesn't go real far when it comes to Kenton toys.
Specifically because they were made right here in Kenton, on the south side of Kenton, which increases the value. Now, is the value on them toys increased only to the Sullivan Johnson Museum residents of Hardin County, or would you say that's nationwide, that if someone comes across one of those toys, the value is going to be high?
Well, the antique toy trade has just gone bonkers, so to speak, in the last 10, 20 years. That there's several magazines, journals, newspapers devoted just to that subject today. And I guess, as I've mentioned in the past, a lot of adults have found they can kind of enjoy a second childhood by collecting toys, and they're bringing extraordinary prices. I think in the last few months, I've noticed kind of what we call softening in the market, that maybe there's too much speculation, that maybe the economy is entering into it now, and that prices, at least from our standpoint, maybe it's good that they're coming down a little bit, and maybe we'll encourage, maybe that will encourage maybe a few more donations, because when people realize maybe they've got something very, very, potentially expensive, that they might be, not willing to shake loose with it, so to speak.
I've been through the museum a number of times, and you have open hours, and we'll talk about them a little bit later on. What would you say in this very large home is your favorite piece of antique, or favorite collectible, or whatever?
Wow, that's a extremely difficult question to answer.
Too.
It is really loaded, and I'm not going to make any friends, I'm sure, by saying this.
The Miranda rights say that you have the right to remain silent if you so choose, okay?
Well, I think, I remember in training what they said, that the single most significant and the largest item in your collection, which you don't usually think of as an item, is the home itself. And I think this is really an extraordinary, that surrounds us right here is an extraordinary example of Victorian architecture. That this is, when I first came in here, and I probably got the first reaction, my first reaction was a reaction I've seen from a lot of visitors here, is that your jaw more or less hits the ground.
This area that we're in right now, with the woodwork like this on the railings and wherever else, you said that a majority of the money, when it came to redoing the home, when Mary Lou Johnson redid the home, a majority of the money was done right here in the foyer, correct?
A good part of it, yes. That they were very much interested, at least we all think of the Victorians, I guess, as being part of that Gilded Age and conspicuous consumption. There was definitely the interest in kind of flaunting your wealth, ostentation, and how better to impress a guest, a caller to your home, by really going to great guns here, really putting a lot of money and a lot of what they considered elegance and taste into this foyer. That first impression, as you've heard,
is the lasting one.
Yeah, it's the lasting one.
I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get a shot of the area up here just to your left. There's no cobwebs, relax, it's okay.
Yes, I just took off the top of my head here.
The artwork up there is just incredible. When you walk into something like this, I guess my first reaction, and there you saw the stained glass window, and that's not only in this area, but a number of areas throughout this home. There's quite a bit of stained glass, and I would imagine this probably has to be a caretaker's nightmare when it comes to dusting and cleaning and shining.
A lot of people do mention that when they come in. I should mention our housekeeper, first of all, is Barb Galt, who also takes care of the courthouse, and really a hard worker, and she, I think, has given a lot of loving care to this house.
It's very apparent.
But
if you're watching tonight, Barb, good job.
And also, can I mention our other employees? And,
sure.
We have Charlie Pearson from Dunkirk, who's a member of the Green Thumb, which I really think is a great organization, great concept. When he's coming here to us more or less free of charge, and it's wonderful. We also have Dan Matthews, who's another very hard worker, who's done a lot of good things for this house, and I think a lot of people, upon entering this house, will notice how well it's kept clean, not only clean but maintained. I mean, they've done a lot to restore this home.
It's obvious when you walk in that this is very, very well maintained. Let's talk a little bit about the levee. A while back, there was a lot of concern that there wasn't going to be any museum, historical society, anything because of the funding that was out there. And the levy has now passed, so at least you're in some funds for a little while. Whether that's going to sustain itself for a long time or not, we're not sure. With that now in the works, in place, are you going to expand programs for the community? Are you going to try to find more relics? What are your goals?
Well, it's first of all, I'd like to express my appreciation to all those who did support that levy. And I think it was very important historically. Let's
Right.
say it was a great, I hope, landmark and watershed in Hardin County history. First of all, it's given us stability. It was kind of a very tense, as you indicated, situation there for a long time. And we weren't sure, in fact, it was coming down to the wire. I don't think my board would have been able to keep me on or our staff on, and I'm sure these homes would have, if not having to restrict their hours, might have closed altogether. The situation is getting pretty desperate. Now, however, let's put it that way, that the levy has gone through, we have, first of all, been able to, keep the ship afloat.
Right.
We've got that, and for the time being, we've had to remain kind of keep the status quo only because we've had to borrow money. That funds were getting low in advance of next year, but we have we thought first of all maintain things, keep things going, and then start planning. We've done a lot of planning and started looking forward to some projects in the near future, and we wanted to throughout, I guess you can say, that just rang true to us, rang true throughout the planning process was working with our strengths, within our strengths, and keeping the collections well cared for. I think that's important. And the house is well maintained. As I
Right.
said, this is the most important thing. So we'll be looking for some building improvements, climate control, so-called climate control, keeping a better stable environment here for the collections, a happy and healthy home, if you will, for the collections. I think, you don't usually maybe think of that, but that's all a very important part of it.
Right. You spoke also about the other homes. Now we're talking about the
Okay.
Sullivan Johnson Museum right now, but there are other areas that you're involved with as well.
Right,
The Doherty House.
Doherty
for
House,
one.
right. And we are going ahead with electrical work over there, upgrading the electrical system. We're going to be working some of the things the public can look forward to, and it may not seem critical, but we are now working within the mandates of the Americans with Disabilities Act and making this more accessible to the handicapped, especially
Right.
wheelchair access. Not only that, but we're trying to be more accommodating to those with physical, those who are physically impaired. Along those lines, not only improving the maintenance, I should say, we're looking to reach out, I think, a little bit more with our exhibits and our programming.
Okay. We've touched on the Sullivan Johnson Museum. We've touched on the Doherty House. There's still one that I'm very familiar with that I would like to get mentioned before it's all over, and that's right next to the fairgrounds on Fairground Road. And that is, you referred to that as what a little bit earlier?
Well, we call it our agricultural museum and village, and it's very much in its developmental stages. It's up and coming, and that we, at least I should pay tribute to Tim Stryker, who's a caretaker down there. We've made some great progress, and now that we have some funding, we're going to be able to continue that and really accelerate. I see that progress. But we have the Burness and Yost farmstead with a very nice example of a farm, not only the farmhouse there, but the barn.
Right.
And we're going to enhance it with agricultural exhibits, farming tools. Late 19th, early 20th century, actually runs a 100 years or more span there. Those collections, we've got a log cabin on that site, which is being built, but some of the viewers may recall there was a arson,
Right, yeah.
which really set us back there, so we're having to scramble to set that together. And we also had the Dunkirk jail, and we finally tracked down some of the original bars for that jail, so we're looking to restore that building.
That's super. We've been talking to Charles Jacobs about the relics, the antiques, the need almost for a museum in a community. And when we come back, we're going to let all of you that have never walked inside the Sullivan Johnson Museum before, we're going to give you an opportunity to see some of the more current relics that you have on hand, some of those things that you're real proud of.
What's new in antiques?
What's new in antiques, and we're going to show you all of that when we come back to Community Spotlight. So stay tuned.
The DARE program has taught me never take drugs, never try them, and never do anything with them or hang around people that take them.
DARE means a lot to me because it taught me about drugs and to say no. And I think that if there would have been DARE years ago, the people that are using drugs today wouldn't have started.
And it taught me not to use drugs, and it taught me the effect if you did.
And they also teach you about peer pressure and how to deal with it.
We need your support.
And thanks for staying with us here in Community Spotlight. This is the part where you're going to get an opportunity, the viewer, to see some of the relics that are here in the Sullivan Johnson Museum. And Charles, for the most part here, I'm going to turn it over to you. You know a lot more about this stuff than I do, so this is your bailiwick, this is your forte, and I'm going to let you take off with it.
Thank you very much. This is really, I would say, just absolutely splendid. I hope the camera does it justice, that this piece came to us just recently. This is a very special desk. Not only historically, this is a piece that came from the Kenton Hardware Company here in Kenton. Was used by one of the plant managers, Mike Wakalek, and it's also significant from a decorative art standpoint, from a standpoint of being a furnishing, in that you can see, first of all, it's a cylinder, which is beautiful, with beautiful burl. And by the way, I should encourage all our visitors to come in here and just lift up cylinders and everything else and rotate drawers. What makes this desk especially important and significant is this rotary section here. It actually rotates, and there it goes back into place. And this is a patent design, and it came to us. We believe this desk was produced over in Indiana, perhaps Indianapolis, by the Wooten Desk Manufacturing Company. And these desks are just extraordinary. Wooten advertised its desks as having a place for everything and everything in its place. Really lived up to it.
When looking at it, there's a number of drawers, not only here, but there's the part out here, plus you've got what's under here. And if you don't have space for it, you can always set it up on top. And I was just noticing the incredible detailed work, and I don't know if, Richard, you're going to be able to pick that up or not, how detailed everything is. There's a little, it almost looks like a grain of some type that they've
well, it's actually in what they call an incising or a carving. That's it's carved out here, all hand tooled, and this is what they call the so-called Eastlake style. I won't go into a long explanation here, but leave it to say that an Englishman was inspired by Oriental designs, and there's a slightly Oriental flavor here, maybe you could argue, but Americans were very quick to pick up on the design. It has a rather pleasing, it's kind of a simple design, yet it's very elegant. I think compared to some of the so-called frumpery we saw in the foyer. But it's really an elegant piece, and the walnut, we believe this is a black walnut, and probably from some of the hardwood forests in the Midwest, so it's kind of a native product. I'm not going to resort to bathroom humor here, but here's something that we might not usually think of as being a museum object. But this is a rather important piece, and that some historians have claimed that one of the most important improvements of our century was indoor plumbing, and specifically the toilet. And that this is an example that was left to us by Daniel and Luella Sullivan, who are the owners of the Sullivan Johnson Museum, at least the builders of the house that stands on the site. But we believe this is an English model, and you can see it was very much pleasing to the eye, and a very elegant means to do one's business, I guess you can say.
That's fine. This was probably the style that had the pull chain that came down from the wall when you were done. You'd yank the chain.
That's right. In fact, I understand that some plumbers are going back to that. It's coming back into fashion. I don't know how efficient it is, but the Victorian toilet is making a comeback.
Well, as I was telling you earlier, when we lived in England, we had a style not nearly as elegant, but we had the chain, and it did its job. No more bathroom humor.
Right. We've come to the gate, so to speak, and that this is a piece that may be familiar to some of the viewers. This is a Champion Iron product, and Champion Iron became Phillips and Davies and became until recently Broderick. Is that correct?
That's right.
That's recently, but Champion Iron had its beginnings in the centennial year of the United States in 1876, and became what they claim to be the largest manufacturers of cast iron fence in the world. And we've been able to rescue at least one of their fine examples of ironwork, in that you can see the rest of this ironwork, the fencing around the rear of the Sullivan Johnson Museum. We have a little herb garden back there.
Mm-hmm.
It graces the garden right now. This is, some of the viewers, maybe you, Bob, have seen this.
I walked by this a number of times, something very similar at the Doherty House, and there are some other homes that have something very similar. And I'm thinking from the manufacturer's standpoint here, going back even 50 to 75 years when this was done, if not longer. With the technology that we have today, it'd be a lot easier to get in here and make everything the way that they've done it, and the detail work is so fine on this whole fence, just like all the other. The desk, the stool, just an incredible amount of detail work. And when I look at this, I think that a lot of times these people that were making this were so far ahead of their time as far as the real fine work went.
Well, I guess you can say they were kind of on the cutting edge, if you will, of that industrial revolution, and a lot of we're supposedly now historically kind of coming out of that industrial period in America, and I guess we're going into I don't know what we're going to call it, the technocratic society or what have you. I don't want to be long-winded on that, but certainly you see these things, and there's a great pride in the craftsmanship, a wonderful sense of the aesthetic, if you will, what was pleasing to the eye, and that's kind of the wonderful thing about the Victorian age, that nothing was done, and I don't want to say that, you use a blanket statement there of just saying that everything was done to excess, but certainly things were done with a flourish. That's a good way of describing the Victorian age.
And I don't know about you, but I'd love to have this in my own yard, gracing my front yard. That would
Not necessarily on a wall.
No, not on a wall. No, I'm talking about across the whole front yard and side yard, down to the old picket fence. Another example of some very beautiful work that you'll find here at the Sullivan Johnson Museum.
I'd like to introduce to you a rather dignified gentleman from the 19th century, and this is the Honorable Solomon Hoag, who was played a very important part in not only Hardin County history, he was a judge, but in our nation's history, and that Minnie Eichler Kohler, who wrote a 1910 history of Hardin County, noted, perhaps I should read to you directly from her account. Judge Hoag was on duty as a court-martial general in Washington the night Lincoln was assassinated. And realizing that there was great danger to the members of the cabinet that fearful night, he organized an emergency regiment of troops and sent detachments to guard each home. His prompt act probably defeated the plot to assassinate all the cabinet officers of Lincoln. With me at this segment of the program, I've come to a room that's very near and dear not only to my heart, but to a lot of people here in Hardin County, and that's our relic room. This room is more or less a recreation of the collection that the Fort MacArthur chapter of the DAR assembled starting in 1950 and going all the way up to the 1980s. But as we look around the room here, we see, if you will, a world in miniature, an encyclopedia of incredible items, wonders, the great wonders and curiosities brought from the world over. And our highlight here is, of course, our little brown bear here, or black bear. But there's some really marvelous things that were collected, many of them by a former mayor, and that's Charles Shanafelt of Kenton.
The bear, let's talk real briefly about the bear, Charles. Was he at one time a resident of the county?
Well, we had black bears here at one time. In fact, I heard a story, and it's strictly a story at that there was one or two bears sighted maybe within the last 5 years. Put a lot of credence in those stories, but I understand that this particular example, according to our neighbor right across the street, Mrs. Klein, was left by a kind of a Wild West troupe that had left it behind at the local theater, perhaps in want of payment on a contract or what have you, and that it came to us. So I thought it was...
It's an interesting piece to the room because there's so many other things involved in this room that, you know, the bear, when you walk through the door, the first thing that stands out at you, so to speak, again, no pun intended, is the bear. He's almost welcoming you with his paws out to the relic room. Nice
right.
gesture.
I was wondering that, or whether he was actually begging for mercy when he was taken down. I'm not sure about that.
Let's look at it as a welcome to the relic.
Right, that's a good way of putting it.
I'm on check. You can go mark it on there, and I'll be up there. 10:45 plus 6 minutes now.
Drinking and driving
Could I see your license, please?
is a dead-end street.
Don't do drugs. This message brought to you by the Ohio Troopers Coalition, Bears Against Drugs.
The magic of television kind of allows us to take a tour of a facility like this that a lot of other people aren't going to get. And for those of you that have never been to the Sullivan Johnson Museum, that's just a very small sampling of what's available for them in here. And we encourage you specifically encourage them to come out and take a look and see what's out there. Some questions that I want to deal with now is, you do a lot of different characters, and I've had an opportunity to meet some of your characters. You bring back some characters from the past, local flavors, so to speak. What brought that all about?
Well, it seems that a lot of the history that's presented these days is pretty what we call static. The reaction I got in going to schools that you'd ask children, you know, what do you think about history? It's boring, you know, it doesn't have much relevance. It's dull. I don't like history at all. And we thought there had to be another way of doing it, to bring history to life, so to speak. And there is a whole school of thought of what they call the living history philosophy, that history can be brought back, involving not only research but a little bit of the theatrical, if you will.
Name some of the characters that you do.
Some say that I'm quite a character in just playing a curator, but we'll let that one go.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there agreeing with that tonight, but again, we'll let it go.
Actually, it all probably started with our characterizations during the Haunted Museum, the first Haunted Museum, and I think that goes all the way back to 1985. And I portrayed, at that point, Jacob Parrott. the nation's first Medal of Honor recipient, of course, not native, but at least a resident of Hardin County.
Right.
We went beyond. We thought that was such a kind of a neat way, and we had a real good response from the public. We thought we'd take that idea to the schools, not necessarily horrifying children, but we picked a very benevolent, somewhat eccentric character for the first year we tried the visitation, and that was one John Chapman, better known as Johnny Appleseed. Not only a planter, but also somewhat of a mystic. And Johnny Appleseed, we do know for a fact, traveled these parts. In fact, owned some land just to the north of Hardin County. From Johnny Appleseed, boy, I'm trying to go back and relive some of these roles, so to speak. We tried one time a gentleman by the name of Oliver Frey. Oliver Frey, perhaps not as well known, not nearly as well known as Johnny Appleseed, but of some local significance. Oliver Frey was the fresco painter, the painter for the Piat castles to the south, and that he lived right here in Kenton, and he achieved some fame not only for his interior painting, but for his portraiture. So that was one characterization. We brought back Oliver Frey, at least I talk about a kind of a schizophrenic type of personality here. Schoolmaster Milton Huey, what we did for the children is recreated a 19th century schoolroom class, and that was a real interesting way.
Which is incredibly different than what the children see today.
Oh, indeed it is. And we had we tried to infuse a lot of not only history, but a little bit of humor and participation, getting them involved.
I've always been told that the easiest way to learn is to be taught in a relaxed environment. So what you're really doing is you're going in there and relaxing those children enough that they're receptive to what you say, and chances are they're going to remember it longer.
I hope so. We certainly are relaxed an awful lot with our last characterization, and that was with Goodness Gracious Grady, the Hardin County showman.
That's right.
Almost the greatest show on earth.
Right. I remember last year we were at the fairgrounds for the Pioneer Craft Days, and you had an opportunity to do that one for me, and it's a lovable character, to say the least. Very, very outgoing type of individual, and really
incredible man. Incredible, many talents. I just hope I do him partial justice. I mean, this man was extraordinary, and it's really satisfying to know he was from here, right in Hardin County. It's terrific.
Okay, some of the other questions that I guess that I'm very interested in is, I spoke about Pioneer Craft Days. Those are going to be coming up again not long after the Hardin County Fair, which is only a few weeks away. What kind of activities have you got planned for us at the fairgrounds this year for the Pioneer Days?
I guess you can say we're planning another really big show.
Okay.
And it's going to be on September 26th and 27th.
Okay.
We've actually now kind of readjusted the schedule and established it as a tradition for the last weekend in September. Kind of gives us a little bit of breathing room, and everybody else breathing room from the county fair.
And a sense of normalcy too, because they know when it's going to take place.
That's right. There was kind of that question before, but if you think the last full weekend in September now, it's great. But we're going to have a lot of the old favorites back. Craftsman, of course, a real drawing card. There's going to be, however, this year we're adding some features. The draft horses, the association, and we're going to have plowing demonstrations out there.
Great.
Adjacent to the fairgrounds, and all kinds of pulling demonstrations and what have you. There's a number of, we're bringing in some new, what we call sutlers, the old-time traders that are coming in. Quilt show, we're featuring a quilt show this year. There will be a lot of musical entertainment. Food is going to be really something special, I think, this year too, as it always is. And a lot of people say, well, you know, it's kind of the same old thing, and it isn't so much this year. We're trying some different things. We've had the relic show, the Native American relics or Indian relics show, which has really blossomed in the last year or so. That's really grown to being really well attended and really, I would say, kind of an exhibition that features some of the finest artifacts of Ohio. So we've had some really nice collections coming for that.
That's the whole purpose behind Pioneer Days, is to bring about an awareness of what took place a century ago, is it not?
That's right. That was the very concept which really brought this about, Pioneer Days, to recreate that lost hands craftsmanship, if you will, the craftsmanship. And not only that, but I think some of the pioneer spirit, which is, I think, kind of an inspiration for all of us today. We're kind of pioneers in our own rights now.
Right, and 100 years from now, they'll have things that we did on a daily basis.
Right, I don't know what
it'll look so
they'll call it. It will be interesting.
It will be. I've had an opportunity to be to the Pioneer Craft Days the past couple of years, and I really enjoyed it. And again, obviously, you want to encourage everyone that can to attend.
Definitely, and this is something, we found a lot of people are coming from out of town. We want to encourage the people of Hardin County. Maybe there's some of the viewers out there who haven't been for several years. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised to find some of the, not only the old things there, but some of the newer things too, the new attractions. Okay. It's a family event.
You'll have a little bit of information for them at the fair as well. You're having a booth out there?
Oh, yes. Okay. And it will be a booth to remember, I hope.
Okay, and if I remember right, first off, is your booth located in the same spot as last year?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so you're just around from the WKTN booth then?
We're in the Merchants Building, right on the corner as you come in there.
Okay.
What is that?
Oh, I'm terrible with directions, so that's going to be the
east
side, the southeast side.
Yes, the east side of the building, right.
Right. And again, we encourage you to show up for that. A lot of you have had an opportunity to listen to Charles Jacobs explain to you the different aspects of the Sullivan Johnson Museum, the Doherty House, the Yost Farm, what all it takes to operate something like this. Maybe you're wondering, how can I get involved? And I'm going to turn it over to Charles again and say, if I'm out there listening and if I'm one of those people, what do I do to become more involved if I've got a real interest and desire?
Wow, there's so many ways you can get involved with the museum. So we have a volunteer organization. That's what really the heart and soul of this operation. I think the volunteers who keep this going. In fact, I'm really the only full-time staff person here for 4 properties. The job would be impossible without.
Right.
So we've had volunteers over the year, not only serving as the host, the receptionists, if you will, for and tour guides for the museums, but also we've had volunteers help us with some of the maintenance jobs, the cabinetry work that needs to be done, cataloging work, processing of the collections, doing public relations. It's really terrific. And also, maybe I should mention too, those people on the so-called outside of, we've done so many cooperative programs over the last year. The Chamber of Commerce, we have this new Showcase Garden tour group that started up. We're working, hand in hand. We're working to reach out there in the community and, kind of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours proposition. I think it's really a spirit of cooperation we need to engender here.
Okay, so really the easiest way almost to become involved is just call you up and say, I want to help, these are the things that I know how to do, or I really don't know how to do much of anything, but I still want to help, and you'll fit them up with something that you have a need in.
Well, not only volunteering, they can become members. We do have I think it's a rather nominal fee, $10 for an individual, and that gives you discounts and newsletters. That's one way, if you aren't able to give your time, that's one way to get involved. Also, just visiting, I think that's one of the most important things. As a family, that's perhaps the most important way, just coming to see us.
When we talk about visiting, in the closing minutes here, you offer tours, and you've already spoke of the tours in here, and what a better way to see the history of Hardin County by walking through this wonderful room. I mean, each room that I've been in tonight is just, incredibly fascinating, and I can't wait to come back again with my family. What days and times are the tours available for people, and is there a charge?
There's absolutely no charge. That's the best thing.
That is the
Who
best.
says there's nothing in life is free? Well,
That's right.
We do run a free county museum that we are open. Our hours, because we are dependent on volunteers, is somewhat limited, but I think compared to some of the other museums, it's pretty generous, those hours. And we're open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday afternoons from 1 to 4, and that's through, actually through up to Christmas time. And then in January, February, March, we take kind of a brief respite. Of course, the traffic volume goes down, and
Right.
It's a good opportunity for us too to do a lot of the maintenance work that we couldn't do with the normal, volume of traffic. So what we do is we limit it to Saturdays and Sundays to 1 to 4, but we're always open for group tours. When I say always, within reason.
Right. Don't call him up
Yeah.
at 1 o'clock in the morning and ask for a tour, because this man isn't going to be real happy with it.
But some people say to me, well, you're run kind of awkward hours or whatever. We do run regular hours, as I say, and if you have a problem with our hours, if you work or you have a problem getting your family together during, Thursday through Sunday, give me a call. I'll schedule, a special tour. If you'd like a special tour, we can give that too. We're here really to serve the public, I think.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 1 to 4. That's here at the Sullivan Johnson Museum. What about
True
the
with the
Doherty
Doherty
House?
House. True for the Doherty House
Okay.
too. So it's, they're only separated by really half a block, and it's just a wonderful opportunity for a family outing to take in both sites at the same time.
And indeed, it is a wonderful opportunity, especially come Christmas time. I remember last year, my family and I had an opportunity to go through and see all the Christmas lights, and just really kind of take in the beauty of what the volunteers can put together in a situation or in a setting like a museum. The old, the antiques, the Victorian style of the rooms really have a tendency to bring out the beauty in all that decoration. And we would like for you to come out and take a peek for yourself. Decide for yourself if what we're saying about this home and the Doherty home is true, if it's as beautiful as what we say it is. I firmly believe that you'll agree with this. Our guest this week again has been Charles Jacobs, and we really want to thank you for your time, for coming out and having an opportunity to talk to us. And there again, you got an opportunity to see just a little bit more of how beautiful this home is. And we appreciate your showing us some of the relics. And again, folks, if there's anything out there that you need, you want to talk to him, just stop by, call. I'm sure he'll be happy to lead you around wherever you need to go.
Well, I really appreciate your invitation to appear on your program, and also I'd like to extend an invitation out to the public, that to come visit. After all, it is their museum and museums, so I hope to see them.
Just about says it all right there. You've been watching Community Spotlight, again, where we try to spotlight and highlight the individual organization that we feel is doing a lot to make this community a better place. And Charles, your organization and you yourself is one of those that we feel are really making strides to make Kenton community a better place to live. And we thank you for being on the show. And again, remember, 7:30 each Thursday night on Warner Cable Access Channel 12. You can catch us right here at 7:30 p.m. To thank all those people that are out there, again, another long list of individuals. Start off with Charles Jacobs, our guest tonight. The man behind the scene, the man that you never really get a chance to see, is Richard Catterjohn. He does all the camera work. He sets everything up, tells us where to sit because the lighting is best. We really appreciate all of his work. We also appreciate Warner Cable for allowing us to be on the Access channel. And again, most of all, we thank you, the viewer, for tuning us in. Good night, everybody.